Some who set out to explore the great outdoors never return. From deadly bear attacks to tragic climbing falls, these are some of the worst deaths in the history of outdoor adventures. Stories of risk, survival, and the devastating cost of one wrong move. On June 8, 2023, Sarah Louise Crocker was a 48-year-old wife and mother of two from Ladera Ranch. Known for her love of the outdoors, her devotion to family, and her deep passion for nature education. A talented artist and an experienced hiker, she spent much of her time exploring California's wilderness and sharing that experience with others. Her life was centered around family, community, and the joy of discovery. But on June 8th, during what should have been a pleasant hike at Three Sisters Falls in San Diego County, tragedy struck. That morning, Sarah set out with a group of family and friends to explore the scenic falls, a well-known but challenging trail in the Cleveland National Forest. The hike, often described as moderate to strenuous, had become increasingly popular in recent years, attracting both seasoned adventurers and casual visitors alike. Three Sisters Falls, despite being beautiful, also held hidden dangers. The United States Forest Service had long warned of the risks associated with the hike: steep inclines, unpredictable water flow, and the deceptively smooth boulders worn down by years of erosion. Despite recent efforts to make the trail safer, accidents remained a real threat. At around 10 a.m., Sarah's group, which included 4 teenagers that the woman supervised and helped along the way, made their way along a ledge overlooking the waterfalls, when one of the teenagers, reportedly a 15-year-old girl, lost her footing. The sudden slip sent her dangerously close to the edge of the middle plunge pool. Sarah acted immediately, reaching out to grab the girl before she could fall. In that split second, as she extended her hand in an attempt to save the teen, Sarah lost her own footing on the slick rock surface. The force of the moment pulled them both over the edge. The two plummeted into the lower pool, hitting the rocky terrain with devastating impact. Witnesses at the scene rushed to help, some administering cardiopulmonary resuscitation in a desperate effort to revive Sarah. The teenager she had tried to save sustained severe injuries to her neck and back, but remained alive. For Sarah, the outcome was far worse. The San Diego County medical examiner later determined that she had suffered multiple blunt force injuries, particularly to her chest and pelvis, and ultimately drowned. A rescue helicopter was dispatched to airlift the injured teen to the hospital, where she was treated for her injuries, which, though serious, were not life-threatening. Despite the efforts of those who rushed to her aid, Sarah was pronounced dead at the scene. The aftermath of Sarah's tragic death was marked by an outpouring of grief and tributes from those who knew and loved her. A GoFundMe fundraiser was launched to help support her husband Brad and their 2 children, Owen and Delaney. Sarah's work as a naturalist at the nature reserve at Rancho Mission Viejo had made her a beloved figure in her community. She had dedicated her life to fostering a love for the environment, leading elementary school field trips and encouraging young minds to appreciate the beauty of the natural world. Her passion extended beyond her professional life. She was an active and involved mother, supporting her children's extracurricular activities and always seeking ways to enrich their experiences. Friends remembered her as a woman full of joy and compassion, someone who never hesitated to lend a helping hand. To those closest to her, it was no surprise that in her final moments, she had been doing what she had always done: helping someone in need. It was a reflection of the very essence of who she was. Michael Soltis was an avid outdoorsman, a civil engineer dedicated to improving rural communities in Alaska, and a man whose life had just begun a new and promising chapter. At 44 years old, he had recently become engaged to Elizabeth Claus, a United States Army Brigade judge advocate, and the couple was expecting a child later that year. He lived near the end of Highland Road in Eagle River, a mountainous region just outside of Anchorage, where he often ventured into the wilderness he loved so much. On Monday evening in June 2018, Michael set out for a hike near his home. It was nothing unusual for him. He had spent years exploring the trails and forests of Alaska. He was last heard from around 5 p.m., and when his friend Sean Roll visited his home the next day, there were signs that Michael had intended only a short hike. A piece of raw chicken still sitting in the sink, which indicated Michael had planned to return and cook it. But Michael never returned home. Now overcome by concern, Michael's family and friends quickly organized a search party, spreading word on social media and even hiring a private helicopter to assist. The search intensified on Wednesday morning as volunteers combed the area, hoping to find some sign of him. That morning, something strange and terrifying happened. As Michael's cousin, Wendy Yeoman, and two other searchers walked a trail in the woods, an unexpected noise broke the silence. Within moments, a massive brown bear charged. It seemed to the volunteers that the bear was guarding something. One of the men placed himself between Wendy and the bear, suffering severe wounds to his leg as the animal mauled him. Terrified and desperate, the searchers managed to scare the bear away before rushing the injured man to safety. A passing driver transported him near Michael's home, where other volunteers waited. The volunteers applied a tourniquet to the man's injured leg. Shortly after, the man was rushed to a hospital. Though he sustained serious injuries, he survived. Later, authorities searching the area made a grim discovery. Michael's body was found nearby the site of the attack, partially hidden in a brushy area off an informal trail. Evidence suggested that the bear had dragged him to this location after attacking him and had been guarding his remains when the search party entered its territory. Police immediately secured the scene, taping off the area and forming a perimeter to prevent further disturbance from wildlife. The medical examiner was called to assess the remains before they were removed. The news devastated Michael's family and the community. His fiancée, Elizabeth, had posted updates on social media throughout the search, pleading for any information. When the discovery was confirmed, she shared the heartbreaking update. Michael had been killed by a bear. The tragedy was compounded by the knowledge that their child would never meet his father. Authorities, including the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, launched an extensive search for the bear. They believed it was the same animal responsible for both the fatal attack on Michael and the mauling of the volunteer. Biologists warned that finding the bear would be difficult, as several hours had passed since it was last seen, and the vast wilderness provided ample cover. Their mission was clear. If located, the bear would be euthanized due to the threat it posed to public safety. The attack on Michael marked the second fatal bear mauling in Anchorage in just 2 summers. It served as a chilling reminder of the dangers posed by Alaska's wildlife, even to those well acquainted with the outdoors. Michael Soltis was remembered not only as a skilled engineer who had worked on vital rural water projects, but as a kind and generous man. His family and friends mourn his loss, recalling his deep love for nature, his unwavering kindness, and his excitement for the future he had been building. The Oklahoma Girl Scout murders remain one of the most horrifying and unsettling crimes in American history. What was meant to be a joyful summer adventure at summer camp for 3 young girls turned into an unfathomable nightmare, leaving a lasting impact on the nation. The tragedy shook the community to its core, raising questions about safety, justice, and the dark forces that lurked where they were least expected. Lori Lee Farmer, 8 years old, was a bright little girl. Full of curiosity, she had an infectious energy that made her a natural leader among her peers. Michelle Heather Goose, 9 years old, had a passion for the outdoors and was eager to embark on the camping experience. Denise Milner, 10 years old, was known for her kindness and intelligence. She was initially hesitant about going to camp, but had been encouraged by her mother to embrace the adventure. All 3 girls were from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, a quiet suburb of Tulsa. They arrived at Camp Scott on June 12, 1977. That summer, Camp Scott welcomed dozens of Girl Scouts for what was meant to be 2 weeks of camping, bonding, and learning survival skills. The girls were assigned to various tents in the Kiowa unit, a section of the camp nestled in the woods. Lori, Michelle, and Denise shared tent number 7, which was the farthest from the counselors' quarters and partially obscured by the camp shower facilities. As the first night at camp fell, the girls wrote letters home, expressing their initial feelings of excitement and, in Denise's case, homesickness. They were expected to wake the next morning to begin their adventure, but they never got that chance. Sometime between the night of June 12th and the early hours of June 13th, an intruder entered their tent. Evidence later revealed that all 3 girls were sexually assaulted before their lives were mercilessly taken. Their lifeless bodies were removed from the tent and left along a trail leading to the showers, about 150 yards away. At approximately 6 a.m., a camp counselor making her way to the shower discovered a sleeping bag on the ground. Upon closer inspection, she realized it contained a child's body. Moments later, the full horror of the scene was uncovered. 2 more bodies were found nearby. The crime scene presented eerie and disturbing clues. A red flashlight with a piece of a garbage bag taped over the lens was left on top of the girl's remains. A single fingerprint was found on the lens, but it was too smudged for identification. A footprint from a size 9.5 shoe was discovered in the blood inside the tent, and duct tape, rope, and other materials were scattered around. Despite the brutal nature of the attack, no one in the camp had witnessed the crime firsthand. However, investigators soon learned that strange noises had been heard throughout the night. A counselor recalled hearing moaning sounds at 1:30 a.m. and briefly investigating, but she was unable to determine their source. A camper in tent number 7 later reported being awakened by a flashlight shining in her face. Other girls in nearby tents recalled hearing a scream around 3 a.m., followed by the faint cries of someone calling out, "Mama! Mama!" The investigation led authorities to Jean Leroy Hart, a convicted rapist and jail escapee who had been on the run since 1973. Raised just a mile from Camp Scott, Hart had a violent past, including the kidnapping and sexual assault of 2 pregnant women. Investigators found a cave 2 miles from the camp containing items linked to the crime, including a roll of masking tape that matched tape found at the scene. Hart was arrested in April 1978 after an intense manhunt and was brought to trial in March 1979. Despite overwhelming suspicion and some forensic evidence pointing to Hart, a jury found him not guilty. The verdict left the victims' families devastated. However, Hart did not escape justice entirely. He was returned to prison to serve the remainder of his previous sentence. Just 2 months later, he suffered a fatal heart attack while exercising in the prison yard. Over the years, advancements in forensic science have attempted to provide definitive answers. Deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA testing conducted in 1989, linked Hart to the crime, but the results were not conclusive enough to close the case. In 2017, further testing provided the strongest indication that Hart was responsible, though the results were still not deemed legally sufficient to declare the case solved. In 2022, the Mayes County Sheriff publicly stated that DNA evidence strongly suggested Hart's involvement, though the case remains officially unsolved. The aftermath of that tragic night was profound. Camp Scott was permanently shut down, unable to escape the shadow of the horror that unfolded there. The families of the victims dedicated themselves to advocacy, seeking justice and support for other victims of violent crime. Richard Goose, Michelle's father, played a pivotal role in passing the Oklahoma Victims' Bill of Rights and helped establish the Oklahoma Crime Victims Compensation Board. Sherry Farmer, Lori's mother, founded the Oklahoma chapter of Parents of Murdered Children, a support group for grieving families. Decades later, the case continues to be the subject of speculation, investigation, and sorrow. The memory of Lori, Michelle, and Denise endures, a haunting reminder of innocence lost and justice yet to be fully served. The vast and breathtaking landscapes of New Zealand's backcountry attract adventurers from around the world, drawn by its breathtaking beauty and challenging trails. But wilderness can be unforgiving, and the risks involved can have fatal consequences. Such was the case for Peter Teck, an experienced tramper whose journey along the Te Araroa Trail ended in tragedy. Peter Seck, a 46-year-old from the Czech Republic, was an avid outdoorsman with a passion for long-distance trekking. That passion led him to New Zealand, where he embarked on the 3,000-kilometer Te Araroa Trail, stretching the length of the country. Determined to complete the trek within 3 months before his visa expired in June 2023, he pushed himself relentlessly, navigating some of the most challenging terrain in the region. As the New Zealand autumn set in, Peter continued his trek northbound through the Alpine route in Mount Richmond Forest Park. His journey had already been marked by dangerous encounters with New Zealand's unpredictable waterways. In April, he had been swept downstream while attempting to cross the Arrow River in Otago, ultimately having to be rescued by helicopter after activating his personal locator beacon. He had also shared on social media his harrowing experience of crossing a river near Hanmer, where the water reached up to his neck and left him utterly exhausted on the other side. Despite these warnings, he pressed on, driven by his ambitious timeline. On May 4, 2023, Peter was last seen at Hunter's Hut by another Te Araroa tramper. He shared his plans to reach Tarn Hut that same day, a 24-kilometer journey estimated to take 13.5 hours. Heavy rain had already saturated the landscape, making the already difficult track even more treacherous. Another tramper in the area had opted to change his plans due to the worsening weather, but Peter remained steadfast, setting off into the wilderness alone. The New Zealand Mountain Safety Council later deemed his plan overly ambitious, given the multiple river crossings, steep inclines, and sudden elevation changes along the route. With the weather deteriorating, the river swelled, turning crossings into dangerous gambles. Sometime between leaving Hunter's Hut and reaching his intended destination, Peter encountered the Wairoa River. For 10 days, Peter remained missing. Concerned by his absence, a friend in the Czech Republic reached out to a contact in New Zealand, prompting a search and rescue operation. On May 17th, search teams discovered his body in a riverbed within Wairoa Gorge. The discovery confirmed the worst fears of those who had been tracking his journey and hoping for a different outcome. Police believed he either slipped and fell into the water or attempted to cross the swollen river and was swept away by the powerful current. The coroner's report revealed that while it was impossible to determine the exact circumstances leading to his death, several factors contributed to the tragedy. The rising waters of the Wairoa River, coupled with his self-imposed deadline, likely pushed him into an overwhelming situation. His desire to complete the trail in an accelerated time frame left little room for adjustments due to weather or unforeseen obstacles. Not even his experience could save him from the unforgiving conditions. In the aftermath of Peter's death, the Department of Conservation noted a rise in hikers prioritizing speed and efficiency over safety, often traveling with minimal supplies, which left little margin for error in dangerous conditions. The New Zealand Mountain Safety Council reiterated the need for trampers to recognize the risks involved in unbridged river crossings, emphasizing the warning signs of unsafe water conditions. Peter's death underscored the importance of proper planning, realistic goal setting, and caution in the face of nature's unpredictability. Authorities issued recommendations following the tragedy, urging trampers to attempt Te Araroa only within the recommended seasonal window and to allow for flexibility in their itineraries. They stressed the necessity of river crossing knowledge and the dangers of attempting to push through poor weather conditions. The towering cliffs of Red Rock Canyon had always drawn climbers seeking both challenge and beauty. On January 18, 2025, what was supposed to be a day of adventure for 30-year-old Micah Manalese turned into an unimaginable tragedy. Micah was an experienced rock climber who had been scaling cliffs since 2014. Originally from Carson, Southern California, she had been living in Aliso Viejo and was known for her fearless spirit and deep appreciation for the outdoors. Climbing was not just a hobby for her. It was a passion she had recently rekindled after a 4-year hiatus. She often practiced at Cinder One in Santa Ana and had spent countless hours refining her skills. Her adventurous nature, coupled with an unshakable determination, made her a strong and ambitious climber. Those who knew her described her as thoughtful and full of energy, someone who found joy in spreading positivity to those around her. That Saturday, Micah and a climbing partner set out for a climb in Red Rock Canyon National Conservation Area, a stunning yet challenging destination near Las Vegas. They had chosen the Community Pillar Route, a well-known climb that required both skill and precision. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department had already been engaged in a separate rescue operation in the area when they received an urgent call at 5:30 p.m. A climber had fallen. Micah's fall was witnessed by a separate group of climbers across the canyon. Among them was Joseph DeLuca, an experienced climber who immediately recognized the severity of the situation. He called out to her, hoping for any sign that she might be able to hold on. Her response was devastating. She was not okay. The distance she had fallen was significant, and DeLuca knew instantly that the injuries were catastrophic. Rescue teams rushed to the scene, deploying a helicopter in a desperate attempt to reach her. The terrain made it a challenging recovery, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. Micah was pronounced dead at the scene. Her climbing partner, though physically unharmed, was left in shock. Adding to the tragedy was Micah's final social media post, written just weeks before her death. She expressed her love for sport climbing and how meaningful it was to reignite that passion during the year. She also conveyed gratitude for the belays and moments spent outdoors, emphasizing her eagerness for more experiences. News of Micah's death spread quickly, sending waves of grief through the climbing community and beyond. Her boyfriend, Robert Hyatt, shared his heartbreak in an emotional tribute, mourning the loss of the woman he called his best friend. He spoke of her outgoing and courageous nature, remembering the countless adventures they had shared. Her sister, Michelle Manalese, also expressed her devastation, recalling Micah as a talented, strong, and inspiring presence in her life. A GoFundMe campaign was launched to support her family with funeral expenses, and in a short time it raised more than $32,500, a testament to how deeply she was loved. Her passing was ruled an accident, a painful reminder of the dangers even experienced climbers face.